friend were highly intoxicated, and he was driving, and he fell asleep at the wheel, and we flipped the car over and over and over again on Highway 85 in South Carolina. And we totaled the car so much that it broke in two pieces. One part was in the median, the other part was in the ditch. When I woke up to the ground being up and the sky being down, and the car flipping. And you don't really think then, you just realize you need to get out of the car. I've seen Hollywood movies that when the car flips, what's the next thing that happens? It blows up. So I get out and I drag my friend out, and I take assessment of myself, and I realize that this car is destroyed, but he only has a broken ankle, and I only have a very small cut in my arm. That's it. We walked away from the accident. And when the state trooper came and took us to the hospital and my friend to jail, he told me, he said, "Young man, God has a purpose for you too. There's a reason why you're here today. I've been to too many accidents, and this one, no, neither one of you should walk away from. God has a reason for you to be here. You need to figure out what it is." Because my grandmother told him the problems I was having. I laughed in the back of my mind. I didn't laugh in his face because I wasn't pushing, not going to jail. And I said, that God, if He wanted to find me, He had His chance. So I looked at my friend. I said, "God must have a purpose for you, and I'm just glad that I was with you tonight, so we didn't both die." But I didn't listen. A couple of weeks later, maybe a month or two later, me and this same friend on crutches went to New York. We decided to go to New York. I told my grandmother I was going to sleep at his house. He told her his mommy was going to sleep in my house. You know how that goes. You all know how that goes. And we went to New York. And in New York, I went to go to the ATM to get some money out of my grandmother's bank account. She spoiled me too much. And I don't think they have them here, but in New York, the ATMs are in glass rooms. You have to swipe your debit card, and then the magnet releases, and you go in, and you're the only one in there. But criminals, I don't know if you know this or not, criminals are pretty ingenious. They would take rocks and put them at the corner of the door, so that when the door closes, the magnets don't touch. Therefore, the door doesn't lock. So when you take the money out, a guy walks in behind you with a gun or a knife, and here you are alone with a guy and a gun and a knife, and you got money in your hand. You already know how that scenario is ending up. You're giving up the money. So I took out the money, I turned around, there was a guy with a gun in my face, pointing directly at me. One of my most distinct memories, I think. And he had the gun maybe 4 to 5 inches away from my face. He was looking me directly in the eye. I never forget, it's a revolver, and it may have been one of those little, the little ones, the little revolvers. But when it's in your face, it looks like that Dirty Harry, the big one, or like Batman, where Joker had to pull it out like this, the original Batman. It was huge, and he did not say, "Give me the money." He didn't say, "Put your hands up." He was really needing this money, I suppose, because he looked me directly in the eye and he pulled the trigger on the gun. His intention was to blow my head off, take the money, and that's it. He's getting that money. He's not taking the chance. So he pulled the trigger and the gun didn't go off. Whether he didn't have bullets, bad bullet, whatever, it was the will of God. But at that point, mine and his eyes both got like this. And we're frozen looking at each other, because what happens is, fight or flight syndrome, which is taught in martial arts, takes over. Your body is dumped with adrenaline because he didn't blow my head off, and he's like that because he didn't blow my head off, and neither one of us can move. And it may have been 2 seconds, but when you're sitting there, it feels like it's in slow motion. And the only thing I can remember is like a little guy running around in my head, like, "Are you serious? You need to go, run, hit him, move, do something, because the next one he's going to blow your head off." So I think my martial arts training at that time, that I just quickly reacted and jumped on him and smashed. We both went through the glass door. He went flying, the gun went flying, the money went flying, and then I jumped up and I went flying. And I told my friend, "We got to go." So we left to South Carolina, and I did not tell anybody what happened, because I knew that if I told my grandmother that I lied to her, went to New York, almost got killed, a couple of weeks after I almost got killed, my father would just say, "Okay, I'll finish the job and I'll kill you myself." I know that would have been the end of that scenario. My dad would have just done it for me. He said, you want to get killed? Then I'll do it for you. So I didn't tell my grandmother what happened, and I started to have some very bad nightmares about these two incidences. They started becoming a recurring every night nightmare that turned into what is known as a night terror. And I don't know if any of you have ever had a night terror. If you've never had a night terror, it's like your worst nightmare in HD. It's like your worst nightmare in high definition. You feel it, you smell it, you sense it, everything. It's a highly sensatory dream. And the dream was about these two incidences, the gun and the car accident, but they ended quite differently. They ended with my death. And it's very rare that you die in dreams and see what happens after you die. But in both of these dreams, I died. and I passed over into the next life or whatever, some type of weird existence. And there was something that was waiting for me on the other side of death that was worse than Stephen King could dream up in his most awful nightmares. What's his name? Rob Zombie. Even though he's got a twisted, sick mind, he could not think of these things in his worst nightmares. And I'll never forget the distinct smell of strong sulfur. Never